Hi, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a year-long 2021 review of basically what I've come across and things that might be relatable to you in terms of being an empath, being setting boundaries with people, being like basically slightly autistic, I feel like, even though I'm not diagnosed, just being a bit borderline, just stuff that kind of relates to me but also that I feel is going to be helpful for other people, and that I've kind of, let's just do a whole review of the year's information in one video, because why not? So firstly, I think I've just done a lot of work on basically just healing as an empath and relationships I've had with damaging people. I'm gonna stick out there, aka narcissists, and just people that have been like damaging in the past that you have to put up with in younger years, but then you have to sort of break away from as an adult. And so I've got some videos upon that, and just friendship breakups, relationship breakups. In terms of friendship breakups, just that it's okay to end friendships if they don't serve you or the person is nasty and not treating you how you should be treated. It's more than fine to be on your own. Like, it's better to be alone actually, in terms of like anything, than it is to be mistreated by someone, because basically then you're alone and you're fighting off someone that's unhealthy. So it's like math, it's like, would you rather be at -1 or would you rather be at 0? Do you know what I mean? So basically getting rid of that, and that person's going to like hopefully at some point go away anyway, but the more you fight it, the harder it is to actually let them go. Sometimes you have to let people go, and feelings are fleeting. You might feel, it's normal to feel disappointment, it's normal to feel aggravated, it's just what it is, and feelings are fleeting though, so let those feelings go, they will eventually dissipate. And it's also okay to obviously be in situations relationship-wise, romantic relationship-wise, that like we build discernment. This has been something that I've kind of accepted over the last year, which is that you build discernment. You should never blame yourself for situations you get in, especially obviously if you're in like predatory situations where people are trying to take advantage of you for some reason, or just, you know, get something from you that you didn't sign up for in the first place. Like, that's not your fault or problem, and you definitely shouldn't blame yourself. But it's a case of like, don't be like, oh, you know, it's not like, it's okay to end those relationships as well, and the chances are you will have learned something from them, and that kind of makes life a bit easy, those situations a bit easier to reframe if you look at it that way. Just sometimes from a later perspective you can be like, oh well, I've learned something from this, and I won't go for that player again, and I deserve better than the way they treat me, and or I don't want to be manipulated by someone that can't get their shit together and has like weird rage issues. I just don't need that in my life. So there we go, you learn stuff from romantic relationships. It's very sad, it is sad. Don't get me wrong, when people break up and, you know, you have to grieve a person that never really existed necessarily in the first place if they have been very manipulative to you, but that's unfortunately the sad way of life, and I hope I'm not like killing anyone's. I don't think this is going to really like be much of a spoiler for many people. If you haven't gone through this yet, this is just my experience, so there we go. Harsh but true. You can pursue your passions in terms of a career sense, in terms of me and my business. It can be definitely feasible to pursue your passions in certain avenues, whatever that may be for you. But it's also important to gain an income. So I'm not saying it's possible to have a side job and also pursue your passions at the same point. There's always a way to go towards what you desire to go towards. And you should definitely make time and space for those needs and hobbies and passions and stuff if they are something that you are prioritizing, if that's something that's important to you, if you have the ability to prioritize that and try and explore that, go for it. Like, it's a great thing. God put stuff in us, I believe, to be expanded, to be, you know, explored sometimes, and it's really amazing. That's one of the best things about life. Another thing is life always works itself out. Some people will take it upon themselves to, you know, try and ruin your life, basically, try and deplete your spirit. They're not gonna do that anyway, because your spirit just doesn't get depleted. It might be corroded at that point, if you want to call it that, but people will never deplete your spirit, because God gives us our spirit, and God, you can't, the devil or people that are under demonic influence, aka have personality issues and a lot of issues within themselves, cannot take away what God innately gave you as a person, I believe. So that's just what it is. I feel like life always sorts itself out. Like, you know, life will sort of throw you a lot of stuff. Stuff will eventually feel like the end of the world, and it's not, and you might go to bed feeling pretty shit. But the next morning the sun will rise and life will go on, and you will recover and you will rejuvenate. If you're an empath like me, go for a walk in nature. It apparently really helps the empath to rejuvenate their positive energy and release the negative. But life goes on. Like, you might think, you know, people can be really awful, and people will really try and beat you down and sort of deplete your sense of self, and, you know, they'll just treat you lessons about, they won't change you innately. They might change you for the better in terms of make you discerning, but they'll make you discerning of people like them and things that they do, rather than change yourself for the negative. But I do think, as an empath, I will put this out there, another thing is that sometimes when you're an empath, you can change for what you'd perceive as the negative and what you'd perceive as the positive. But by that I mean, it's okay to sort of quickly judge people if you see traits in them that can be detrimental to you, and make sure you do it quickly to, or you can do it quickly to, you know, reserve your energy and sort of not waste energy and time on people that, like, don't desire to sort of have any sort of goodness within your life, because you can only, like, really control your locus of control at the end of the day. You can control how you treat other people, you can control to an extent how you handle situations. I say to an extent because I'm not saying that we don't innately have natural human urges to get angry at people, and I definitely think going with your emotion is actually really healthy and important and empowering. When people need a kick up the ass, I'm more than happy to do that, and, like, that's actually my psychopathic traits coming out, more than happy, and it's okay, you know what I mean? So yeah, just life always works itself out. Some people in relationships, though, I think, like, notice who your friends are, evaluate your friends. In terms of friends are, you know, no one's perfect at the end of the day. If you can accept your friends for how they are, then great. It's okay to assess friendships, and as I said, if people aren't treating you right, to cut them off. If people aren't your friends and they're sort of trying to move into your circle or move into your personal, you know, locus of control and kind of take control of things that aren't really for them to take control of, make it clear that they are not in control of that, and they are not, you know, welcome in that place. Like, they're not really, you know, it's not okay for them to sort of move into that space that's not accommodating them. So as long as, some people, obviously everyone has their own boundaries. Some people don't, like, no one's going to like be able to accommodate all of your boundaries. I mean, obviously close relationships hopefully will be able to accommodate a great deal of them in their own portions of life, but in terms of people that try and sort of, like, actually naturally impede your boundaries, it's so important to hold boundaries and set them even when people don't validate or accept them, or even respect them, because it's well known, even by, like, narcissists and stuff, that they, oh, not by narcissists, about narcissists, that they have a poor emotional regulation in lots of ways because of their ego issues, etc. If you try and get a narcissist to validate your boundary, they won't. So you need to set those boundaries within your own life anyway, even though they won't be validated, and they probably won't, and they won't be respected either. You have to just set them anyway for your own sanity and self, because at the end of the day, no one can change, like, people can affect your mental state, don't get me wrong. Outside influences have a massive effect on your life, but if you have a good internal boundary, and you know when to set boundaries and when to tell people that you've had enough, when to just, you know, retract your energy when you don't want to, or you're done with that situation, just to sort of be like, I'm done now, you're not getting anything else from me. In terms of, you know, what really can people do in life to... People will try and rattle you. The thing about narcissists is they like to bait you. That's part of their personality disorder. But you can take the bait, or you can allow them to bait you and just... It's very difficult. I'm not saying we're robotic humans. I think it's so important to not lose sense of your emotional side, and not allow it to be suppressed by unhealthy people. So it's just, as again, I just mean setting personal boundaries for yourself, being strong in God and allowing God to strengthen you, and his child, being his child. God will hopefully block out people and take away influences that are not for you, and they are not supposed to focus on you, and you're not supposed to focus on them. God can blind us to things, and you know, we've gone this far without wanting to kill each other. I think lockdown has really brought out a lot of interesting sides in a lot of people. So there it is. So yeah, know your worth in relationships as well. I feel like this goes for any relationship, work, personal, acquaintance, anything. You know your worth, especially I feel like in romantic relationships. My romantic relationship worth has just become something that is very important to me. Yeah, and just it's very important to know your romantic worth, because of things like law of attraction, you will attract what you are, but at the same time you will attract like something that supports what you think you are. So if you think, like, obviously you can't control whether you've got, I mean you can control whether you've got low self-esteem, but if you have low self-esteem and you have, you know, you've had a lot of trauma, and your core belief is that I can be abused, or people are allowed to abuse me, you will attract someone that will have that same mentality towards you. And it's just shown me so much in romantic relationships recently that you really can be your own, I would say be your own partner. Does that sound weird? Like being single is so much better than being mistreated, and just being your own like psychic, being a whole as a person, especially if you're someone that's been in a lot of relationships, or you've had codependency issues like me. I've definitely healed codependency this year as well, but it's like you can be a whole person, you can be a whole being, you can have a solid masculine and feminine energy as one person without a partner. And that might sound like really obvious, and without even certain friendships and stuff, like you are a valid human being within yourself, and it's so important to get in touch with that. So there we go. And just having standards and boundaries, and realising like what you're just not here for, like what you won't tolerate, what you don't really, you're just above it. Like, you know, we only live on this planet once. My energy's not going to be wasted on people in situations that don't serve me, or that are going to take advantage of my good nature, or just be generally irritating, or just weird, or whatever. It just doesn't align with me. Like, don't try and align with me when you don't align with me. Just don't do it. There's just no point, because you'll just irritate the universe anyway, so luckily I'm not in charge of that. But so spending time on your own is great. This is like another thing that I've learned in 2021. Spending time on your own is great. It can be really nice to just be in your own space and just not have to be bugged by people, and to rejuvenate and be okay with the fact, if you're introverted like me, that you are introverted, and not feel the pressure to be extroverted all the time and make up for the fact you're introverted, and try and socialise with people that are potentially conversational narcissists, and society has validated them to the point that they feel that they can suck the life from you. So there we go. Another thing, you can feel excessively lazy and unproductive if you do things like surf the internet massively for ages, day after day, stay in bed all the time, etc. But I do think that rejuvenation, especially after a traumatic event or even a traumatic life, when you're still trying to pick yourself up off the ground in terms of mental health or whatever, it's always valid, and it's always a natural response to any sort of, you know, emotion, energetic depletion, isn't it? Like, if you've had a hard time, you're going to want to sort of rejuvenate, and that's okay too, but you might feel a bit lazy and unproductive from it. So after a time, it's good to be able to then reincorporate things that maybe make you feel less lazy, and that's all. But take the time you need to heal, because it's going to happen anyway, and if you just carry on running yourself into the ground, that's what's going to happen. You'll run yourself into the ground. Yeah, so just there's so many ways to be more productive. I've done a habits video recently, if you care to look at that, in terms of picking up better habits and becoming more and by productive I don't mean society's standard of overproduction that companies like to inflict, and toxic bosses like to inflict upon their employees to create some sort of horrible work environment. What I mean by that is being able to clean your house and not hate the process, and getting it done in a timely manner and not hate yourself or the way you have to do it, and maybe allocate times for that, and build, you know, things that, or structures that work to implement certain habits. I talk about that in my habits video. I mean, that's more or less, I think, it for what I've written down. There's probably more stuff that I've talked about, so feel free to look at my channel if you want to see, but I thought it would be good to do a little review and just kind of encapsulate some of the stuff. Yeah, that's more or less it, I think. So yeah, thanks for listening, bye!